Hello, Ghoul Scouts. I'm Kat, right? That's my name.
Can be Dr. Philadelphia.
Hello, Ghoul Scouts. I'm Dr. Philadelphia.
And I'm Cousin Knight. And we're
the Ghouls next door.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming to our mini-sode.
We're doing it again.
Yeah.
We did it before? Well, I'm kind of constantly. It's like
you're always doing
it. Always. I am in the episode before. I am in the episode next time. I'm in all of them.
Right
simultaneously.
Now. Yes. Of course. I want to punch white supremacists.
That's good.
Me and Sister Knight have that in common.
Yeah.
so
it makes sense.
Yeah.
It's what needs maybe to happen.
Yeah. Right now, honestly. So it's very timely because as we record this, there is some awful things happening in our neighborhood. So that's fun.
Yes. If I was the real Dr.Manhattan.
Yeah.
/ Dr. Philadelphia.
Yeah.
I could just poof them.
Yeah.
Just teleport their heads to other places.
Yeah. Oh, that's nice.
I can't do that now.
Yeah.
Because I'm a normal human.
I could still probably punch, but not as good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of the problem.
I'm not good at punching.
Yeah, I can't do the cool kick.
I dislocate by walking.
Yeah.
I can't walk on water. That'd be nice.
If you could walk, period.
Yeah.
For you. I
just hover above.
Everything.
Don't need to walk.
And you could be naked.
Yeah.
I have a penis
That'd be fun. I have a penis. That'd be new.
Yeah. So, today is another mini-sode in our very turbulent climate of civil unrest.
Yeah.
And we are going to continue what we started last week, which is talking about content, fictional things, that the intent is to educate you on what's happening in the real world. This is I feel like this is the best time to learn because we're all kind of learning anyway. And it's all our other episodes are the hypothetical or the history, the past, that happened before. Whereas now we can be remember last week?
The thing that's happening right now on Facebook
that we're watching because it's down the street from our home. Yeah, so today we're talking, if you couldn't tell from Kat being blue and me being a cool masked vigilante, we are going to talk about Watchmen. Which, when it came out in October of 2019, when I binged, I thought it was glorious. I thought it was just going to be fun, superhero time. And then the first episode started, and I was like, oh no, I'm ready. This is what I needed.
This is better.
But when it came out in 2019, people said, it's too political. Racism isn't real. We've fixed that. So stop making shows that are too political. You don't want to ruin our fun time with your education.
I have a very long rant.
Against us. Because that's what we're all about. Is you get educated by the media you're watching. So thank you, Damon, for making this.
I have a very long rant that we can get into now or later, depending on the mood. How we're feeling.
Yeah.
About the whole, let's not get political with our media.
Yeah, no. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Get out of here. So, the Watchmen, and the reason why people were why are you getting so political? The original is a graphic novel by Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons, who's the artist. It is the exciting and dark Watchmen takes place in Tulsa, Oklahoma. This one. Sorry, hold on. This one, what the show is.
Show Watchmen is this.
Is the exciting and dark Watchmen takes place in Tulsa, Oklahoma, 34 years after the original story. After white supremacists attack on the local police department, which leaves only 2 surviving cops on the beat, laws are passed that allow the cops to hide their identities behind masks. One of the cops, Angela Abar, adopts the identity of Sister Night and fights racists while dealing with the decades-long legacy of vigilantes. Thanks, Wikipedia. The comic, the graphic novel, is not that, but it does deal with masked vigilantes and essentially like
Civil War.
Yeah.
Political things also.
Yeah. Yes. It is actually very political. And a lot of it is about, like, if we had mass vigilantes, the truth is that they would be owned by corporations and banks and stuff like that. There's literally a bank hero, right? And it's kind of commentary on that and about, like, this idea that we're heroes, blah, blah, blah. But this totally, the show kind of takes all those things that it kind of dabbled in and lightly touched because it didn't want to step on any toes.
Subtext.
And it just, it's just like, no, you're going to have all of this. And it just shoves it all in your mouth. And it's like, this is what truth is. And now it punches you in the face like Sister Night to white supremacists. And it's great.
Yeah, and you can't ignore it.
Yeah.
It's just right in front of you.
So in all the ways that Al Moore likes to pretend that he tried to do something, it's really like this takes all that and it takes it seriously and it does a really good job. There's some things that I'm like, we could have done without that, or some of it's a little silly, but I think the overall things that we're going to take from it and what we're going to talk about today really kind of dive into that. And so, you know, for a show that's about, like, vigilantes fighting for justice and highlighting the flaws in society, it's kind of foolish for people to be like, why is it political? You know, like, that's the point of it.
It's the whole thing.
And I think just, like, the start of this show, and to kind of dive in before we kind of derail and just start talking about things, is it starts with a dramatic reenactment of the Tulsa Massacre from 1921, where that was known as Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and a bunch of white supremacists came and murdered them and burned down their places of business in their town because, like, how dare you try to make something for yourself? Yeah. Like, and we'll plug the video of the woman who talks about that, right? She's like, every time we try to make something, it's there. We're not looting our own neighborhoods, and we don't have anything to loot, you know? So it's like, I think that's the fact that, you know, October 2019, that happens, right? This show came out and it premieres with that history that even I didn't know about. Yeah. And I was like, what is this? This is real. It is horrific, right? Because, again, our education system fails us continuously because it's designed to do that. And the fact that now, today, we're recording this when just a few days ago, Donald Trump decided that he's going to kick off his rallies on Juneteenth, the day that slaves were freed. Yep. In Tulsa. And so there's, like, it's laughing in your face that white supremacy is real, and it's there, and it has so much power that it could do something so blunt, you know? Like, at some point, they just took off the map. They don't even wear them anymore. They don't need to. Instead, they wear Confederate flags, and they tell you it's their history. It's like, that was all of, 3 minutes of the history of America, and you lost. Like, what you're telling us is that you're white supremacist. So,
yeah, I mean, it's and if we're talking about, like, the massacre, it was the beginning of, like, a bunch of other massacres of others, like, towns that had been, like, established, like, successful Black people in a time that the Great Depression was taking place. So it was kind of like that whole, as you said, like, how dare you do better than white people? Yeah. And then, like, the KKK and, like, other white supremacist people joined forces. It was in Los Angeles, Chicago, Tulsa, and there was one other that I can't put my thumb on. But I agree with you. I also did not learn about this stuff until I was older. Like, I did not learn about this in school. If anything, I remember maybe, like, the heading where it said the Tulsa Massacre. Yeah, yeah. And I remember, like, having, like, a paragraph that was, like, this big. Yeah. Tiny. That barely even covered it. Yeah. And, it all goes back to, like, if people don't see the problem, if there's, like, that, ignorance, there's that privilege, there's that veil.
Mm-hmm.
That they're not going to think that it needs to change because everyone's so busy. Yeah. Everyone is just trying to survive or manipulating people for their benefit. And it's like everyone's just going, that now that we're all inside, we actually get this nice clear lens. And I actually read the article, so Gabe put some articles in our script that was really helpful because she's great. And there was this article called "Some Watchmen fans are mad that the HBO's version is political, but Watchmen has always been political." Just written by Alex Abad Santos.
Yes.
And
that was Cracked.com? Or no, Vox?
No, that was Vox. And I wrote a very long rant that I'm not going to probably cover the whole thing of. But it's basically like, one, if you're a person who's saying like this is too political, that's your racism. Like you showing. Like that is...
The world is too political.
Like you can't escape it. And like, two, if you're feeling uncomfortable watching the Tulsa Massacre and blatant racism, you're supposed to. Yeah. You're not supposed to think like, oh, this is a great fun time. And like, who are you that you can be like, I don't want to watch this because this is my fun comic. Meh. And it's like, those are people's lives. That happened. Yeah. That happened and was real. Like erased from history.
Yeah.
That happened, like, and people don't know.
Yeah.
And it's just like...
It's like, sorry, not sorry for reminding you of a factual event. Like, you want statues of Christopher Columbus when it's completely inaccurate. He never even touched any foot on America to begin with, and he's a murdering monster. Listen, you want those stupid statues, but you can't, like, because you don't want to forget your history, but you get confronted with history on your Fun Times show, and you're upset about it.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. And honestly, you're literally being shown the truth. And if that's inconvenient to you, take like 2 seconds to think how inconvenient it is to exist.
Yeah, to just do that.
In this world where you have the luxury to like step back and just have a fun time.
Yeah.
Where that's not the reality for most people.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you're supposed to feel uncomfortable. That's the point. You need to feel this. I want to infiltrate every single media that exists so that you cannot escape it. I want you to feel so uncomfortable so that you can get like a glimpse, a tiny little drop in your water cup. I don't know, that just kind of gives you a tiny little idea of what it's like.
Make you think about
like, where you can't escape. And, like, I say that as someone who does have that luxury. Because I am a white person with privilege. I'm blue right now. But,
yes,
I in any other, like, if it wasn't for the fact that so many people I love are people of color, and I just lived in the middle of nowhere and was ignorant and didn't know, maybe I'd be a different person. But it's like so important. Like that can't be an excuse anymore because we see that it's lies. We see all of the lack of information. I want everyone to be uncomfortable. I want this to be all the time. TV. Yeah. Everyone's doing it. Yeah. I want everything to be political because everything is political.
Yeah.
And then like basic human rights and like feeling that people deserve a fighting chance should not be a political ideology. It should just be like, are you good person, bad person?
Yeah. Why are we starting, like, what, I forget which comic it was, but it's just like, why are we starting the conversation at just matter? Mm-hmm. Like, why is that the fight that we have right now? Yeah. Why can't we set literally on just that they matter? Why is that a problem? Like, that should show you enough of what's going on. Yeah. And so, this show does a really great job. Like, it like I said, it doesn't, the fact that we have, like, these masked vigilantes, it does not mask anything. It is in your face that this is happening. And it, confronts a lot of really interesting themes throughout it. There are some very uncomfortable moments. There's, a lot of confusion, and especially for people who haven't read or watched previous movies. And you might think, like, if you were just a passive viewer who never really looks into things, then maybe you did think that your comic, Rorschach's the hero, and of course, this is just about fun beating up people. They're the clear bad guys, these are the good guys, and the bad guys hurt people more. Like, it's
Rorschach.
Yeah, so
gross.
The thing about it is, like, in the original, like, there's a few things that get totally twisted. Like, we take the hints and what this show does is it takes the reaction of real life people to that media and it reveals the problems with it. Mm-hmm. So the fact that there is this idolization of Rorschach, right? Mm-hmm. And that he is like edgier Batman and he's actually murdering people, like, and he, you know, doesn't, like, he's the fantasy that all the white men in South Philly right now who are protesting the Columbus statue being removed are, like, thinking that they are. That's what they envision themselves as, like, sticking up for what they believe is right, and that means they can come to a street corner with bats and a rifle and protect a statue against people who are protesting peacefully, right? And like, the show takes that, and it took the beloved character of Rorschach, and it put these masks on the white supremacist, because that's exactly what they think they are. Because that's the whole thing. They think
they're immune.
Well, they think that they're the heroes. Mm-hmm. That by acknowledging the pain and the suffering that these people of color have endured at the hands of their country, and the things that have benefited them, mm-hmm. right? Like, they can't get, like, let those things go. They can't do that. So by acknowledging all that and, like, reparations, right? They call them Redfordations in the show. Like, doing all those things to try to make the past right. It's that same rhetoric of, like, you know, we never owned slaves. That was the answer. None of us here were slaves. None of us owned slaves. So that means it's all better. Like, didn't what's his name just say that electing Obama means that we've paid for slavery?
No. Yes, they said that. But it's dumb. But yeah, I mean, I feel like it's really jarring just to, like, the idea that in this alternate reality of the United States, mm-hmm. even as messed up as that world is, they at least acknowledge they did the bad. Like, that's the alternate where reparations were given.
Yeah.
We're like, this is the worst one.
Yeah.
Even,
and
like,
we done that.
We haven't done that. We're just like, oh, wow, this hypothetical world where, you know, it's better, maybe, honestly, comparatively.
Yeah.
Dr.Manhattan just blows everyone's head off. They can't.
Yeah. But I think that's it, too, is, like, they, in that world, they think that by doing this thing that is perceived as right for what we know is right means that you're taking away their American right. You're taking away their American dream. And so they have to fight against it, right? This is literally just the Confederacy people being like, you can't take our history. It's like, your history is trash. And we can. And that's, like, you're stupid. Like,
I mean, it's like different. Argument. You're not taking the history even. You're just taking away the idolization of that past. History, You can still read about it.
Yeah. And so, like, that's one thing, right, that they kind of turn on its head. Like, and it's a deliberate, like, act of, like, this is a person you worshipped and here's why it's wrong, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that there's another character. So again, spoiler town.
Welcome
to Spoiler Town. There's another character that will go into, which is the Hooded Justice, who is the first hero, the first masked vigilante, and in the comics is a white man. And if you don't know, the Hooded Justice wears a hood, black hood, and he wears a noose around his neck. And it is confirmed in one of these, like, board games or shoot-off games that he was, in fact, a Klan member. Which is why he's wearing those. So that's the hero that you think. Also, there's a lot of alluding that, oh my God, I'm totally forgetting his name. Ozymandias. Veidt is essentially like a Hitler remake. Like, it's happening at the same time, but he's Hitler.
Yeah. Right? I mean, he makes genocide. He just drops a squid. It's a different form of genocide. Still genocide.
Yeah. There's, like, you know, there's literally a line from one of the comics where someone is talking about Hitler and they're saying, like, I suppose you're right, but it's going to feel awfully strange. He's essentially talking about Veidt, that he's a pacifist, a vegetarian, and then there's a retort from Rorschach that says Hitler was a vegetarian, and if it bothers you, just leave Veidt to me. I'll take care of it, right? Like, it's essentially like, you know, a wolf in sheep's clothing kind of thing. Yeah. But there were these hints all throughout, and it is, like, recreated in this, but really bluntly. Like, there's, like, so in this Cracked article that I found, which was essentially how Watchmen has always been about race, they even talk about, like, in the background, there's a lot of, like, art or commentary that's happening. So there's like the band when the squid happens is the pale horse, which is like the pale horse death, right? But the band that comes on before them is Crystal Knocked.
Yep, because the Night of Broken Glass.
Yes. And in the show, there's like an instance where there's a white man who throws a Molotov through a clearly Jewish business.
Yeah, that's in the show too.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. That's the thing in the show, and I was like, oh my god, Crystal.
Yeah.
And it was like, that's the first time that this character confronts and tries to do his job as a police officer, even though he's a person of color, and is shown that he can't do it. And that leads me to like the I think one of the biggest things to learn from, especially right now in today's climate, and then I'll pass it over to you, is that you can't fix the system from the inside, right? Because it's, one, the system isn't broken. The system is doing what it was designed to do, which is oppress certain people. And it's going to do that no matter what, as long as it exists. And so we have this generational story where there's, you know, family member after family member who's joining the force in some way or trying to like make a difference from the inside.
Yeah.
Right? Like they are going in as a police officer or as someone in the military, hoping that they can be the change.
Yeah.
That they can protect their people by, you know, unfortunately going to the other side. Like he what's called a Tom, you know, and they quickly realize that they can't fix it from the inside. They can't fix it while they're in that uniform, and they have to still masquerade and put on a costume and work from the outside to fight because the system does not work for them.
Yeah. And I mean, and when you brought up Veidt, that like reminded me of the fact that like, yeah, he is very much like evil. And in the show, they really like highlight that at the end, like spoilers, at the end where he's like, I did it. I saved the day. And it's like, you also blatantly admitted to murdering 3 million people.
Yeah.
Like, you're not above the law. You don't know what would have happened.
Yeah.
Like, who
and
are you to know? Like, yeah. And like, who are you to think you know? Like, yeah, you're the smartest guy. Good for you.
Yeah.
But like, no one knows everything. You are not God.
Yeah.
And like, there maybe isn't God. Like, you know, you're not the decider that gets to do this. And then like, really just like, and I feel like that's just like any rich white man who thinks he's above the law and thinks he's helping, where he's really just murdering millions of people. Or putting them in cages, or systemically oppressing an entire culture of people.
I need a haircut, so it doesn't matter if your grandma dies.
Yep.
Real life. It happens every day.
You know, you gotta be a grandma. Just an immunocompromised person like me. But yeah, I mean, it's just like, you get kind of, the show really touches on every single problematic like symbol in our society, and I think that is just like really cool. And then like you also really get to see how like intergenerational trauma kind of manifests itself, and they like they visually represent that so beautifully, in that like there are these little signals throughout like all of their lives growing up that like connect how, you know, they try to work within the system. You know, you start the show with him watching the sheriff. Was he a sheriff? He's wearing a hood and he saves the white town from the bad sheriff.
Oh, yes.
And that's like the first thing you see, and he has the badge, and like he's accepted because he has the badge.
Yeah, but he had to wear the hood.
And then you see how Hooded Justice, same thing. Like, you know, he has to paint his eyes
white
to wear the hood, and so he can be safe in doing that. And then you have like her seeing like all the awfulness and like the way to get outraged and like trying to be, as you said, in the system, but also like kind of fulfilling a family legacy of like being a fighter but within. So it's like you're a cop or you're military. The difference is like, are you wearing a mask or are you not wearing a mask?
And even still, like, and that's another thing is like with the system that's shown that it doesn't work, is that like we're shown police who are wearing masks because they had been attacked, and so they need to protect their identity. And we're living in this like ultra liberal society where they can't have guns on them, and they have to request and have like permission to release their guns, which I was just like, they could just like have not use their guns to shoot people, like whatever. But there's this, like, you see that and you think, like, oh, okay, it's to protect the cops. And then you find out in the end that both sides were orchestrated. That the person pulling the strings for the police and the person pulling the strings for this group are the same person. And that this war is manufactured because both sides are controlled. And there is no winning it because you just have to break it completely. Like they're just putting up these fake bad guys so that you're distracted and can't see the big bad guys who act like your friend when they have a Klan's robe in their closet.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, it's like, so to compare it for like what's happening right now, it's like when they put the bricks in the street, they're, you know, conveniently, they're like trying to like set up the little building blocks to racial tension, societal tension. They're trying to like create villains. So it's kind of similar in like the way you see like the police chief and the mayor and or senator. Yeah. And like how they're masquerading as allies when really they're the worst.
They're the ones. It's like COINTELPRO going in and smashing the windows to start riots in like a Target versus like their original target, which was the police station, which deserved it.
Yeah. So it just honestly, it really beautifully kind of lays out all the things wrong with society. But then also it's just like, the whole trauma piece really got me into that. Like, you see like the physical ramifications, you see the emotional ramifications, you see like, it's just like so beautifully laid out. If you ever do trauma research, it's really interesting.
Yeah. Well, and how like talks about it too.
Yeah. And you get like kind of just like this like you kind of see how even if you are not directly in it, so like essentially this still all happened to generations of humans. They're all hurting because of generations of problems that were forced upon them. And then they're still here today because of the fact that it's orchestrated. You know, we're putting drugs in poor communities. We're, you know, giving police funding so much that they have like war weapons. You know, like it's all orchestrated. We gotta blow up the train. Yeah. It's just like really bad.
Yeah. And it's like, until I forgot my line. Could go.
Yeah. So I guess when I was reading a lot of this stuff, it was really interesting because I was reading about Rorschach. So I had never read the comics. And I just thought it was really interesting that when I was reading the article on Vox, that it was actually really outlined that like Rorschach, we kind of have the intention versus impact. So he really thinks he's doing a good thing, you know? And I feel like it's people thinking that they worked hard for what they have, so everyone should have that same chance. It just reminds me of that kind of like capitalistic view where it's like if you're in the middle class now, but you start in the lower middle class, you look down on poor people because you got to work up, and it's like you're not acknowledging the privilege that you had to get you there and how like toxic and dangerous that is. Because like his whole thing is he thought he was doing the right thing, and he thought everyone who was in a bad way deserved to be there, instead of like accepting the fact that if you push people down for hundreds of years, there are going to be like no one's on the same playing field. Yeah. The only people, there's pedestals. Yeah. And the people at the top of the pedestals are pulling the strings while everyone on the bottom is like forced to fight each other to the death. And you think you're doing the right thing. Is just what's the most crazy. Like, these people aren't bad people. They just don't see it. Yeah. And that makes them bad people. Because it's just really gross. It's just really interesting that it's really easy to feel like a hero in a society that's literally laid out to make you feel that way. Yeah. And make everyone else feel like a villain. And just because you think you're doing the right thing, maybe take a second, look long and hard in the mirror, and just like really analyze what you're fighting for.
Yeah, and I think something that that's brought up a lot, like one is like, you know, they talk about generational trauma, like inheriting the trauma. So like because of the squids falling and the psychic blast, the boy's mom had been affected, and he says he has nightmares from her, right? And there's like a character literally experiences the memories of their grandfather, but it's like that's something like you're just replaying their events. Like, you're replaying those stories. And there's a question, right, where she's asked, like, did it hurt? Did you feel it? Like, what did you feel?
Mm-hmm.
And she said, like, pain and sadness, right? And
Mm-hmm.
and there's, like, you know, when she's
Anger,
right? She thinks it's anger, and he says, I thought it was that too, but it's pain, and it's finally just like lashing out and acting out because you feel like you're at the end, right? Like it feels so hopeless because you've seen history and present day, and you see that it never changed. It just took on a different face, right? And I think like a big theme in there is like that you can't hide behind these masks. Like, you can't heal behind a mask, he says, right? And, like, there's all, like, you know, they're always condemning these, like, mass vigilantes because they're working outside the system, blah, 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 blah. But it's just, like, because they feel comfortable in that mask, right? That they can do whatever they want. Like, we talked about the masks that we wear. You consider, like, code switching, right? Or even just thinking of, like, the mask that you put on to be an ally, right? Like, that mask isn't, like, you aren't going out there, you're not living that. Like, you can take that mask off and then go live your life, right? But but race and what people are being judged for and dehumanized for is not something that they can take off. And so, like, there's scenes where the new version of Hooded Justice is a black man who has to paint his eyes white so that people think that he's a white man who's fighting, right?
Yeah.
And that was, like, so powerful to see because he's taking back this, like, these very clearly clan, like, metaphors of, like, the hood, the noose. Like, he experienced that, took it, and then used it to act out on the pain that he had. And then she recreates it and said she paints her face black.
Yeah.
Right? And so she's, like, doubling down and trying to, like, reinforce the power that she's feeling from this and trying to, like, also act out, like, the continuous pain, like, nonstop. She just keeps losing and she just keeps getting up anyway.
Yeah.
And it's, like, that's literally what we talked about last time and what we talked about now and what we talked about when we're, like, looking at these films that were literally last year when people were saying this isn't the time for it, or
like, when is the time?
Right, like, people are being like, you know, we fixed it, it's all good, and then we live right now in a time when we're all confronting those pains and trauma, and we're all learning and we're all like, figuring ourselves out and looking back and being like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like, this goes deep. Like, every single time like you mentioned it last time, every time I'm talking about, like, the system and the truth, I'm always like, I feel like a conspiracy theorist. And that's what you feel like when you're watching the show. You're like, this is, like, a crazy conspiracy and it's unraveling and it's like, you know, what he said, there's an insidious conspiracy inside the government. And it's like, but there is. Like, he sounds like a crazy person, but there is. And it's like, it's so interesting to see, like, how they're fighting it and how, you know, they're also fighting their internal demons, and there's, like, this, you know, familial thing, this is, like, whole chain that how is it that she can have this memory of his life and feel pain that is so similar to the same pain that she feels in her own life. Like, nothing has changed, and you can't change it with a mask on. Like, well, one, if you're going to protest, this is a PSA from the Ghouls, you do need to wear a mask because COVID-19 is real, and you do need to protect yourself, and that should not be an excuse to not go out. Like, you need to wear a mask. Those masks are allowed. So I just wanted to PSA there. But the like, these, like, you know, masks that we put on and try to pretend that everything's okay, and, you know, I'm hoping that with what's all going on and with this resurgence, or not even, like, the first time, you know, this interest in being educated and entertained and in uplifting, you know, Black voices as well, that we can look at media like this and realize that it is time, and it has always been time. It's overdue. It's 400 years overdue time. And, like, we need to put on our media analysis glasses, and you need to do what we've been telling you this whole time. And it's, like, looking and really seeing what media is trying to tell you. And stop hiding in your holes and trying to avoid reality, because that's a luxury that not everyone has. And that's the problem.
And it's just, it would be really easy for when everything opens up back up again. to just 2020. That was a crazy time.
Yeah.
It's better now. Like, and I feel like I'm definitely very scared that that's something that's going to happen, that we're going to go back to normal, and then normal is not what we need.
Yeah.
If anything, like, yes, this journey in learning everything that was trying to be hidden from the world is exhausting and it hurts. And I've cried most nights of the past month. Maybe more. It's just been a lot, but it needs to be a lot. We need to look at this stuff. We need to dissect. We need to understand every single ounce of poison that is just ingrained in every part of our society. We need to lift up rocks. We need to know it so that we recognize it and so we know what we're fighting.
Yeah.
Just
there is an insidious and unjust conspiracy in our system that we need to fight about.
And we're not going to do that just by going back to normal.
Yeah, or pretending it doesn't exist.
It still exists.
Yeah. And I so many people are 2020, we're just going to forget it. We're going to get through it, and then we're going to be whatever. But I think what we need to do is be no, this is the year that it changed. This is the crux, right? This is the pivotal point where we have changed the trajectory of 400 plus years of America and pushed it in the right direction. And that's all we can hope for. And the only way we can do that is to go out there in our COVID-19 masks and protest. And we need to be loud, and we need to educate, and we need to support one another. We need to give people a safe space so that they can finally relax or finally breathe, because they haven't been able to ever.
Yeah.
And so I think this show does a lot of really great things. There's some silly things. It's still a fun time. But there's a resurgence of it now where people are watching it and they're wow,
I said it wasn't the time, but it is.
Whoa, who knew? A year later, not even.
It's literally, we really just need to, it's not going to be easy. It's going to hurt. We're going to have to make sacrifices, but they're worth it. And we need to do them. And every day that you spend fighting that, in terms of if you're on the wrong side, if you change your mind, you realize some stuff, make sure every day past that day, you're working to act. You don't just feel bad about it. That doesn't help anybody. Continue to better yourself. Work hard every single day to try to not be as bad as the time you were before, and maybe we'll get somewhere.
Yeah. I was typing only because I wanted to say I wanted to get it right.
Say some stuff.
One of my favorite Toni Morrison quotes, and she's one of my favorite authors, and if you're looking for literature by Black voices, she is definitely someone to check out. Some amazing things. But one of the quotes from her book is, anything dead coming back to life hurts. Right? And I think that's it. It's you have to, it's not going to be a walk in the park. It's going to hurt. And that's how we know that it's working. And because it's
rules.
It's hurt. yeah. Or flossing. Right? Yeah. It's you're bleeding a bunch of times until you stop bleeding. Right? Yeah.
Sorry.
That was wonderful. You come to the Ghouls and you get gems like Toni Morrison quotes and cat quotes.
Say things in the brain. Sorry, I did not mean to.
No, I think it was good. One thing I wanted to just mention, because there's a lot of something I'm really excited about, because I love heroes, but I hate Batman.
Yeah.
With I've always hated Batman because I think he's bad. I think he's bad at what he does, because he's a rich white man who just goes around punching people instead of putting money into the system of his town, the city, to fix the problems. He literally could be the example of how we fix government. Instead, he's going around punching henchmen who just are trying to feed their kids.
They just have all this money for what?
I'm sorry that you're mad your parents got killed. That's not how that works.
Yeah, that's not how you fix it.
Sorry that happened to you. But let's talk about all the Black people in America and what happens to them every freaking day.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, white man. Anyway, I hate Batman. So there's a lot of one, I saw a post by someone that said that Batman has to show the bottom of his face because people need to know he's white. because he would be treated differently. And I was like, oh my God, that's what happens in Watchmen. But then also there's a lot of like, you know, like all this like these posts of people being like, Batman, like if he just got audited, he'd be out.
Yeah.
He's out there punching henchmen. They're just trying to be their kids. Like everyone's just dragging him, and I'm like, finally, you guys see that you guys have been buddies with cops this whole time. Like everyone has like idolized police and like this authority figure instead of like seeing the problems in the system. Like I've been said, like we can't just throw all these villains, quote unquote, who are clearly sick. Like all of them have a mental illness and just throw them into an asylum and then they break out and they murder people and you're like, oh, put them back. Murder, like severely cripple a bunch of people, but like put him in the place that he's going to make friends in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's a bad time. I definitely agree.
I just don't like vigilantes. Iron Man. So
yeah. Well, and you also got like the quote at the end where it's like, or honestly, it was Angela's dad who said, masks make you cruel. So it's like, we gotta take them off and be here. And vigilantes, we don't need that. We need people to just like be regular humans. Yeah. And doing what they can.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, finally making a difference, because it's like you can't, like, what is it, insanity is doing the same thing over and over thinking you're going to get different results. It's clearly hasn't worked. It has never worked, and we needed something different. We need something different.
All I'm saying is everyone in charge right now is dumb. Blow up the train.
Blow up the train, yes.
Like honestly, it's just like we've been run for however many years by idiots. Yeah. Idiots who don't know what they're doing. Yep. I'm not saying I know better, because I don't. No one technically does. Like, no one technically knows, like, all the answers. Yeah. But the people in charge right now definitely don't either. So, we just need to figure out a different time.
And it's clear, like, the conspiracy is so clear. Mm-hmm. Like, if you can have your rally with all your white supremacist friends on Juneteenth in Tulsa during, like, rampant Black Lives Matter protests and changes throughout the country, the fact that you've, like, attacked peaceful protesters and pushed them
They're still murdering people in the street.
Yes. But could do that just so you can walk across the street to hold up a Bible at a church that you also kicked out the people who work there and are the church people. Like, what are you... And, like, that we can protest police brutality and be met with police brutality, and still people are saying it's a few bad apples. What you don't understand is that the whole orchard is poisoned. It is all bad. Yeah. There's no good ones. Just like all the cops in this show tried to be good. They try to make a difference, and they quickly, immediately are confronted with the fact that they cannot change it. Like, they cannot, it's too big for just one person in there. Yeah. So the very few good apples, the system is designed to weed them out, or to just deconstruct their morals and what made them a good apple to turn them into a bad apple. Like, that is the whole point of them. Yeah. So, like, we can't keep seeing that. We can't look at an old man getting pushed and say, like, he's Antifa programmed to fall. 80. Yeah, like, you can't... For people to see that and not see that this is a problem shows how deep that this fantasy of what America is goes, and what justice is, and how it's always worked for them. It's like, it shows the ignorance, right? Yeah. And that's what we're combating.
And people, like, aren't ready for change, and they need to get ready for it. Yeah. Honestly.
And it's, you know,
because it's going to be inconvenient. It's going to be really inconvenient. Yeah. And as someone who loves convenience, I'm fine with being inconvenienced for the rest of my life. Yeah. For this to happen. Yeah. I will never use Amazon again. I will never use Starbucks. We just got to make these bold moves. It's going to suck. Yeah. It's going to suck. Yeah. Nothing will be easy ever again. Yeah. And that's okay. Because eventually...
It will. Yeah.
It will.
Because, like, you know, we said in C yesterday, we want to make a future
worth running
that we would want to run to. Yeah. And, you know, we can't do that if we keep doing the same things. And so hopefully, you know, you're learning from the media. We're finally, you know, at a point where people are, like, open to learning.
Yeah.
And I hope like you keep learning and you keep growing and you make yourself a better ally, and you're not putting on the performative mask of an ally.
Yeah.
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 So that's what I had to say.
Yeah. Picking it up.
Yeah. Well,
Don't get
don't get married. Delete your kids. Yeah, I don't have anything funny to say about it.
Yeah, it's kind of
just like do something,
do it.
and
make a future worth kids being in.
Yeah.
So that even if they hate each other, at least they had a good few minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, this is really. We need to do something.
Yeah. Yeah. So let us know how you feel. Send us an email, goalsnextdoor@gmail.com.
Yeah.
And if you have resources, if you have, ways for us, like we're doing our own research, we're out there, we're not putting anyone out to do it for us, right? But we're working really hard because, we've always thought we were trying, and then we quickly realized, like, not enough.
Yeah, we didn't want to hurt anyone's feelings.
And no more, we're done.
And we're done. We need to just say the things.
Yeah.
Everyone needs to just get used to being uncomfortable for a little bit.
Yeah. So then we can all be comfortable.
All become equity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Well, bye.
Thanks. Bye.